Good. I got the
Hey,
whole
Dan.
thing, the whole speech on video.
Oh, good, you good.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. If you have a card, I'll send you the link to it.
Yeah, I don't have
So, Patricia, sorry, I can take a couple of questions, but I actually have to end the official ceremony so the senators get back to work. So we have about 2-3 minutes. Happy to entertain a few questions.
Can you go back to the podium? Can you stand up?
Sorry. Yeah, I would love to take that as a start. It would be great. And the question is, how are we moving local legislation without the support of the local legislators? You all curious why the local legislators aren't supporting this?
Yes.
How about that question? Let's ask them. So, Jen Jordan and Betsy Holland, if you're listening and you're not breaking your fingers on Nextdoor, driving us all crazy, why don't you answer that question? This bill could go through in 2 seconds if Jen Jordan and Betsy Holland listen to the 70% of our folks that we polled that want this. So that's my answer to it, is we would love them to sign the bill, and this would go through 1, 2, 3.
I think that self-determination
Go to the podium.
is founded on. Do you think that residents of Alpharetta should be able to choose in Alpharetta? You know what, if Windward, for example, is unhappy and the city council is not doing their job and the mayor's not doing their job, there needs to be some discussion. So and this administration has not done its job under Mayor Bottoms, and I hear, oh, well, she's gonna be gone, but the city council hasn't stood up either. So there's no public safety committee, nobody's talking about it. I don't see the business community standing up, and I don't know why they're not, because they should have been.
Will you be presenting general legislation to allow for secession from all of Georgia's 500 cities?
I'm doing this bill right here. That's a silly question.
All right, can we have some serious questions?
Well, I've talked to the lieutenant governor, and he's not going to report this at this point, but he is willing to allow it to go forward in discussion. He's not going to stand in the way of it going through committee process. And I will tell you, I have not talked to the governor about it, but I would tell you that having the governor's floor leader as one of the top 5 signers on this bill should say a lot about that. He's had permission from the governor. Thank you, Governor.
All right, you had a few questions. Is somebody else?
Todd Jones.
Yeah, no, we're not going to be studying how it affects Atlanta's budget, but as far as the numbers that you hear, and just to clarify this for everybody here, some of our opposition is here, the city of Atlanta's organized opposition is here, and the media is here, and our friends are here. The $205 million that we're pulling out in the feasibility study for the services that we will be providing, number one, we're not pulling out schools. So the doomsday dribble that you hear from folks saying we're going to pull out of the schools is BS. We're staying in the schools. Why would we want to pull our children out of these great schools in Buckhead? But we will be a voice to reckon with if we're going to continue sending the APS $330 million a year. That is for sure. That is for sure. The percentage budgets, which you can go on public record to find, is the total Atlanta budget for this year is $3.5 billion. That includes $1.5 billion for APS. So it's rounded up, it's 2.09, so let's call it $2.1 billion is Atlanta's annual operating budget this year. If you take $205 million out of that, I rounded it up from $203 million, so it's a little less. We're only taking, everybody have a calculator? That's 9.86%. If you added all of Atlanta's budget, including schools, we would be taking 5.6%. So I don't know where the other numbers come from, but it sounds like you need to check the sources of where we're saying our numbers and where they're saying their numbers. And I quite frankly discount anybody that's doing business with the city of Atlanta from comment on this, because I think there's some fog going on in their glasses. Okay? Any other questions? You're not a reporter, but I'll take your, come on up here. Okay, Marymount Graduate, that's New York. That's right by my dad's old restaurant in New York. 70th and 2nd. Yes, yes. So these are the subsidies for senior living housing, and those 100% will continue, and I would challenge our lobbyists to make sure, can I get your information? So I will send exactly what we're doing with our budget, and we'll get it to you, but yes, no fear in that, okay? Yes, ma'am. Sure. So you had a few questions, anybody else? This is going on the ballot in November of 2022. 100%. And it's thanks to the courage and commitment of legislators like those who will ensure that that is happening. Yeah. WSB Radio. Yes, Senators, you want to head that? I have yeah. Yeah, you come on up here. I will just say very quickly that our plan in Buckhead City Police Department with the 250 officers, there will be a small force action unit. In fact, I have my friend Brian Johnson over here and some members of the Special Forces of our great U.S. Army. Let's give our military a round of applause for being here. Let's give our 4 APD officers a round of applause for being here to keep us safe. And I'd like to just recognize the prison doctor. That is Myron Fontaine. So you mentioned the malls. You know about the water boys. The prison doctor has got a prescription for those kids and their families. And I think you're going to be very impressed with what we do in terms of literally taking them off the street, hopefully not having to send them to jail, but there are some that have to be taken off the street in a way that is proper and correct for non-compliance with the law. But if we can help them and support Myron and his foundation to help keeping those children from going to those corners in the first place, that's what Buckhead City is going to be doing in parallel to enforcing the law. Sir?
And a question about private businesses and how they address it. If law enforcement, public safety aggressively enforce all Title 16 codes and all Title 40 codes in Georgia, then what you do, there's not a piece of commercial property in Georgia that is not surrounded by city-owned or government-owned property. Therefore, those officers who have jurisdiction on that government property, their aggressive enforcement of laws impacts the individuals that get through and get on the private property. What it does is it emboldens private property to be more aggressive on their prosecution of shoplifting and things like that, which now everybody's afraid to do. So it's one of those New Testament begat issues, where if you have good public safety on public property, it's tougher for the thugs and the criminals and the punks to get onto private property to do what they want to do, and when they do, it's a hell of a lot harder for them to get away. So what you'll find, and listen, the city of Atlanta has created a problem that is going to take years to solve. They took their hands off the wheel of public safety and allowed absolute chaos to happen in this city. This is not an overnight fix. And to somebody who mentioned from the crowd local legislation and support and all this, listen, I agree 100%. When there's some local legislation that just impacts a few people, then we can have that discussion. But when we're talking about local legislation that if not passed costs lives, costs children to be killed, causes elderly people to be shot at, beaten, and cause people and their animals to be murdered in a public park, then yeah, I'm willing to step out on local legislation that will protect that. Because my job as a law enforcement officer was to protect 200,000 people's lives, and my job now as a state senator is to protect the lives of 11 million Georgians. And so I'm more than willing to step out on that.
Sir, sorry, last question for you.
If you're gonna remain part of APS, how do you intend for APS to be governed, and who's gonna set the millage rate?
Good question. So the question was, who's going to set the millage rate? And if we're intending to stay part of APS, how is that all going to work? And I will say that the APS has made a statement about this, which really was not true. They're not studying our plan. We have not met with them. It's kind of like the city of Atlanta. You would think with all of the, we're going to go broke, the bonds will be exploded, the tidal wave will come, the grandmothers will be pushed over, all of this gloom and doom, that we might have heard one phone call, one elected official, someone from the city of Atlanta to talk us off the ledge, to ask us, why do we have to do this? Please let us work this out with you. We have heard nothing from the city of Atlanta, nothing from the mayor, nothing from the city council president who's running for mayor, nothing from the former mayor who's running for mayor, nothing, sorry, from downtown. I have other words for it, but not for today. So I think that it would behoove the APS to have a very open mind on how we will work together to continue sending what some people say is $230 million, what we think is $330 million. No matter what it is, it's a lot of money, and it's your money. So I think we will have some options to discuss with them to do two things. One, to increase the horrendous ranking of the APS. There are 153 out of 193 in the whole state. You couldn't get much worse than that. There's room to go. And almost 40% is the number of students who can't do math correctly or write or read English correctly. Meaning 60% can't, 40% can. I don't think that we're serving the beautiful children of the city of Atlanta in a constructive way with a return on investment like that. So I think the legislators would agree we could all do better in our schools. Our committee agrees we need to find a pathway. And I would encourage APS to pick up the phone and give us a call, because we would love to work with them to make our children smarter, happier, and more successful. Thank you very much, everybody.